Good morning. I'm Jo Reingold. I'm interviewing Eileen Ray, and today is Monday, April 22nd, 2019. Hi there, Eileen. Tell us a little bit about your grandparents and your parents that you remember, where they were from, where they lived, what did they do for a living?
Okay, my grandparents came from Russia. My mother was born in Russia. And I think my father's parents were born in Poland, and my dad was born in Poland. And they ended up in St. Louis, Missouri, and went to school there. And they met when they were young, maybe in high school, and dated and ended up getting married in St. Louis. My grandfather spoke English. I don't think my grandmother spoke very much English. They all spoke Yiddish. Mm-hmm. And my mother had four sisters. And my dad had, I think, 4 siblings, 1 sister and 3 brothers. And so as a kid, they all spoke Yiddish when we'd go to visit. And so I kind of picked up a little bit to understand. They spoke it so the kids wouldn't understand what they were saying.
Right.
But my parents lived in St. Louis and then moved to Texas, to South Texas, to Harlingen.
What was the reason for that?
My father's brother moved to McAllen, Texas, and opened a scrap iron yard. And then his sister married a man they lived in Brownsville and moved to Brownsville. And they opened a scrap iron yard. And my dad was working in a shoe store in St. Louis, and they said, come to the valley and you'll go to Harlingen. So those were the 3 largest cities there. And we'll teach you the junk business and you'll open your own scrap iron yard. So Daddy picked up and went there, and they showed him the business, and he decided he liked it. And so he got my mother and I, and we moved when I was 5 then to Harlingen.
Okay.
So
What was life like there, living there?
it was fine. I had a great childhood. Went to grade school, high school, junior high, made friends. Still have a friend that I met in junior high, and it's been a long time. Mm-hmm. And joined organizations in high school. Was a member of White Teens Youth Organization. There were only 4 Jewish kids in high school. Myself, another boy that was my age, and another boy and girl that were a year older, and that was it, just the 4 of us. But I participated. My dad was an Elk, joined the Elks Lodge. Mm-hmm. So the Rainbow Girls they had was an organization for girls whose parents or fathers belonged to the Elks Lodge. So I was a Rainbow Girl. Mm-hmm. I was active in the pep squad and on the annual staff and tennis club.
Did you have any opportunity at all for any kind of Jewish learning growing up?
We did not have a temple or a synagogue in Harlingen, but there was one in Mercedes, which was about 30 minutes away. So we had a carpool, and every Sunday we would drive in a carpool, the 4 of us, and go to Sunday school and then come back home. And they had the holidays there also. And then finally they built a Temple Beth Israel in Harlingen, right across from the high school. So there were 40 Jewish families when I left, I guess. And my parents were very active, and they didn't have a rabbi, but they had lay rabbis, so my dad would lead a service one Friday night, and somebody else would lead another Friday night. So all the parents went to the temple on Friday night, and all the kids went to the football game across the street at the high school. So they could hear us cheering and all during the football game. But after services, after the service was over, they closed off the room and they all went to the back of that room, and the men played poker and the women played mahjong.
On Friday nights?
On Friday nights, yeah.
Okay.
They'd have refreshments. And then after the football game was over, they'd come and pick us up.
Can you think of something memorable that you worked on in high school that you're very proud of?
I was on the annual staff, So I worked on the annual, getting it printed out and so forth. And I think I was the typist.
You know what?
I was on the annual staff, and I was on the pep squad, which I enjoyed doing that. And the tennis club. I really wanted to join a lot of things during the 4 years so that when the annual came out as a senior, I would have a lot of things written under my name. Like, boy, she was really active, and you know. So
Sounds like you succeeded.
I did that. Yeah, that
Yeah.
turned out okay.
Yeah.
But it was fun. I had a good time in Harlingen. Yeah, it was nice. There was a little anti-Semitic, I guess. There was one teacher that I remember. I don't know if that's one of the questions you want to ask.
That's
but,
important, yeah.
I think he was the math teacher, and maybe that's why my math is so bad now. But he'd go, every once in a while, he would just go say, let's go down the aisle, and everybody tell what church they go to. And my stomach would just churn. I mean, I would get really nervous, and I'd think, oh God, he's going to come to me, and what'll I say? And right before, there were maybe 2 or 3 people ahead of me, and I'd raise my hand, and he'd say, yes, Eileen. I said, may I go to the restroom? And I'd go in there and stay as long as I thought it was past my chair, and come back, and everybody would be finished. And then all of a sudden he'd say, oh, Eileen, you weren't in the room when it was your turn, so now tell us what church you go to. And I'd just say Temple Beth Israel. And he'd say, oh, what kind of church is that? And I never heard of that. I know he did, probably, but anyway, I'd say it's a Jewish temple.
You were the only one in your class?
I was the only one in my class, yeah. And at that time, probably, there was just the other boy that was my age, that was in class. But it just was embarrassing, and it just really made me mad that he would do that. But I lived through it. So.
How long did you stay in Harlingen?
I graduated high school in 52. Should I tell
Okay.
the date? No, how old I am. In 52, and went to the University of Texas in Austin. Went 2 years, decided I had enough education and wanted to come to the big city to work. So 2 sorority sisters and I, one from Fort Worth and one from Lufkin, decided we'd come to Dallas and get an apartment and work. And so I got a job as a typist at Liberty Mutual Insurance Company.
Okay.
So that's all I did was type. But the day before I left Harlingen, I went to my cousin's wedding. This is going ahead of your notes,
It's okay.
I guess.
Sure.
And met my future husband there.
So was he at University of Texas also?
He had already graduated and had been in the Air Force, and now was in optometry school, and 6 years older. And I met him at the rehearsal dinner, and then I was with him that evening. We all went to Mexico, because it was in Brownsville.
Okay.
So we all went to Mexico to have drinks and dance and so forth. And the next day at the wedding, he was standing on the pulpit and looking at me, and he was going, I love you. And I said, what? My mother said, is he saying I love you? And I said, yeah, I guess so. So anyway, we were together that evening, and then the next day I left on a train to come to Dallas, and he left on a train to go to Houston, back to optometry school. So
when did you reconnect?
that was the end of September. In March we got engaged, and in June we got married. So 9 months. Not even every weekend, maybe twice a month. He'd either come to Dallas because his parents lived here,
Okay.
or I would go to Houston, or we'd meet in San Antonio, and kind of courted then.
Right.
And then
So he
married,
obviously
so-
he got a job here.
So he did. He graduated. Well, when we got married, he had 1 more year of optometry school,
So you-
and then I had a baby 9 months and 3 days later, and so we had our little baby there in Houston in an apartment, and then he graduated and we came to Dallas,
Okay.
and then he got a job here working. So
And you were working also? You started working here when you came back?
I worked here just for the few months when I left college and worked here. And then the minute we got engaged, I thought, good, I can quit work now and plan the wedding. So that was the end of my working career. And then when we got married, I worked in Houston a little bit at another insurance company, and till it was time to have my baby, and I quit. And that was it. Didn't work after that. I worked at his office when he opened his own office. I worked there to get him started.
And at this point, where was your family?
Family was in Harlingen, and they stayed there, and then when my dad retired, they moved to Florida.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they left Harlingen and moved to Florida. And then we were here, and stayed here ever since. And I loved living in the big city. I mean, to me, Dallas was like New York City, and I loved it. So,
What kind of things did you and your husband get involved in?
he was in the Lions Club, and he was in the Chamber of Commerce there. And his office was in Oak Cliff. And he worked for his cousin for 10 years in the optical business. And then the opportunity came to open his own office. And so he did, and we kind of got started with that. So he joined the Chamber of Commerce, the Lions Club, and just to meet people, you know, to come get their eyes examined.
Right.
And I worked with him for a while. I would take the kids to school, go to Oak Cliff, work, leave about 3, pick up the kids from school.
I was going to ask how your family grew, your immediate family.
Oh, we had 2 daughters, yes, the one that I had, you know, after we got married. And 2 years later, had another daughter. So, and that was fun. I was young still, so I really grew up with them. And it was just fun watching them on drill team and all their high school and school activities. Girl Scout, I was Girl Scout leader, and just participated in PTA and all of that when they were young.
Were you all involved in anything in the Jewish community?
I joined National Council of Jewish Women, so I'm a life member, and it was the evening branch, and I've met all my friends that I still have now. Then it's been over 60 years, and I joined B'nai B'rith, the Blue Bonnet chapter, I think.
Right.
Was on the bowling league there, and Sisterhood at Temple Emmanuel. My mother-in-law took me to a luncheon, and I joined then. So I've been a member of Temple Emmanuel and Sisterhood for 63 years.
And what were your daughters involved in?
They were in BBG, yeah, in BBG in high school, so they loved that. And we didn't have anything like that in Harlingen, but they did in Corpus Christi. And I think it was called Young Judea, and we would go up, Dad would drive up to Corpus, I don't know how often, maybe once a month, and I would go to the meetings there. But that was about all we had, nothing else in Harlingen.
So tell me a little bit about how Dallas has changed since you first got here until now.
Well, it's really grown, and of course now there's Dallas, Farmers Branch, Carrollton, Richardson, Frisco, just kind of all melds into one. But at the time, I think, of course, they didn't have Central Expressway, or maybe they did. My in-laws lived in South Dallas, and my husband grew up in South Dallas, and I think Central Expressway came through there. But I don't think there was anything much past Northwest Highway. I don't know. It's just really grown, but I just loved it. I just love living in a bigger city. So.
And you still feel that way?
Oh, I do, yeah. Of course, the traffic is terrible, but, you know, more people are moving in here now, and it's going to get worse, but, yeah.
Do you still have any contacts with anybody in the valley? Or?
No, everybody's kind of died off there, I think. And there is one person that lives in Dallas that's from Harlingen that I don't see that often, but I know that she's here. And then my husband's cousin married a man from the valley and moved down there, and then they moved to Dallas about 10 years ago, I guess. So,
Okay.
yeah, she's living here, but no, everybody that I grew up with down there, I mean, all my parents' friends are all gone, because they were older when I was a kid, so now they'd
Yeah.
be 100 years old.
Can you think of anybody who was your role model growing up?
I think my mother probably, she loved to cook and I loved to cook. I could just live in my kitchen. And she was very independent, and I didn't used to be independent when I was younger or just first married. But I am now, and I deal with things that have to be dealt with, and it's just one of those things. And my mother was kind of that way. She kind of ruled the roost, you know, and Daddy worked and she took care of everything else. So, yeah, I think she's my role model.
If you had to think of something, what would you say you were the most proud of?
My family, my daughters, and my husband, and just that I had a home and ran the home and took care of everybody. And I don't know, I've matured a lot.
Anything about your family that we haven't covered so far that you want to add?
I don't think so. We just went to St. Louis every single year in the summer. That was our summer vacation, to visit relatives because they all still live there. And so we'd go there, and that was fun. And it was, of course, St. Louis was a big city too, so we had the zoo, and there was a amusement ship called the Admiral that had casino and restaurants and everything in there. So that was really an experience, and we loved doing that. And just being in a big city, they had more movie houses than one that we had. No, we had two, I think, in Harlingen, or three. One was first run movies, one was second run, and one was only Westerns.
Oh, boy.
So, and they had great big movie theaters there, so we'd take the streetcar and go to that. So it was fun.
Have they ever, any of your relatives visited you here in Dallas, and what did they think of it?
Well, they all came for our wedding, and we had the wedding here instead of in Harlingen because it was one whole day's of train ride to get here from St. Louis, and Mother didn't want to make them have another train, another whole day to go down there. So we got married in Dallas, and a few of them went back with my parents back to Harlingen for a visit, just maybe for a few days.
Right.
But I guess they liked it here. Yeah, it was different for them, and they were all very Orthodox,
Oh,
I think. And like during the holidays, they would walk, they wouldn't turn on the lights, and they followed, all the traditional things. So it was very different in Texas when they came to visit.
That's what I was wondering about.
Yeah, they all kept kosher. My parents started out keeping kosher, I think, but then it was too hard to get food that was kosher. So they stopped it, but they would drive to Corpus and buy deli things. Daddy would say, "Do you want to take a run up to Corpus and go shopping?" And Mother would say, "Okay." So they'd go, and she'd bring back big long salamis and these tins of Lasco lox, all came in oil. I remember that, and all kinds of Jewish foods, and she had a big deep freeze, like a chest, and put everything in there. So she had all kinds of good deli meats that they take out, and I don't think they ever sold any of that in Harlingen.
Oh.
That you just couldn't get it there. They didn't even know
I'm not sure they still have it.
what that was. They
Right.
probably don't. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Is there anything you'd like to add about your life here in Dallas?
I love living here. I've made wonderful friends. Like I say, I joined Council of Jewish Women, the evening branch, and met wonderful ladies, and we're still friends after 63 years.
Mm.
And just everything in Dallas, you know, the theaters, the movies, the plays, restaurants, everything that you have here, you can do as much or as little as you want. And in organizations too, you know. And when I joined Sisterhood, I did a lot of the luncheon decorations, decorating the tables and all. That was kind of what I liked to do. So that was mainly what I did. But yeah, I just love living here. Yeah.
Well, we appreciate your interview, and good luck with everything.
Oh, thank you very
you.
much.
Okay.
Enjoyed it.